Hey book buddies, Katie here, and today I'm going to be filming my February and March wrap-up in my car because my house is too loud. Yeah, I mean, the truth is, I don't really know what I'm doing with my life, but what's new? This is just where I am now. People are looking at me like, is she filming a video in her car? So I decided to combine my February and March wrap-up because I noticed that people kind of think that wrap-ups are a little bit boring, and so every time I post a wrap-up, I lose subscribers. So I'm thinking if I post a wrap-up every 2 months instead of every month, I can minimize the damage. I'm wearing this flower crown because most of the books that I read in the past 2 months were fantasy, and so it seemed appropriate. However, I do not look as good as Allie. I wish I did. Like in my last wrap-up video, I'm gonna go through these like kind of fast. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about my opinions and what I rated each book, but I'm not gonna go into like a full-on review. So if you guys want a full review for any of these books that I'm about to talk about, just let me know in the comments. Okay, so the first book that I read in the month of February was Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I will say that this book is very different from the movie. I would say that the first half follows the movie pretty well, but the second half, or rather the movie follows the book pretty well. But the second half, they're completely different stories almost. So if you're looking to read this book because you love the movie, because the movie is gorgeous, you will still like it because it's really good, but it's not going to be exactly the same. But that being said, I did really enjoy it, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book that I read in February was Stardust by Neil Gaiman, and this is the first adult Neil Gaiman book that I've ever read, and it was hilarious because I remembered that Neil Gaiman is a straight man, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's allowed to have a sexuality. I mean, it's fine. I'm just saying that it was funny because there was a line in here that was like, I swear by my breasts and my lips and my maidenhood. And I was like, gross. Are you sure you want to go with that line, Neil? But it was really beautifully written, and I did really enjoy the story. The only critique that I had of it is not even of the book itself or the writing. It's just a thing that bothered me, and it's so stupid because I'm a grown woman. But there is a certain mythological creature in this book that, in my mind, represents everything good and pure in the world. And this isn't like a huge spoiler, so don't worry. But not only does Neil Gaiman kill this creature, but he kills it in a way that's like really, really degrading and horrible and violent, and it was just hard for me to read because I'm a sensitive person. So yeah, other than that though, I did really, really like this book, and I gave it 4.75 stars. Next in February, I read The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. It's the first book in the Inheritance trilogy, and I actually found N.K. Jemisin through Jessie over at Bowties and Books, which, by the way, if you guys aren't familiar with Jessie's channel, what are you doing with your life? Their videos are amazing, and they're the glue that holds BookTube together, so definitely go check them out if you haven't already. Jessie was reading a different book by N.K. Jemisin for Blackathon, and it sounded really interesting, and so I was actually looking for that book, but couldn't find it, and I found this one instead, so I thought, hey, why not? And I got it, and oh wow. It was such a fun book to read because it was crazy. Everything that happened made me feel like I was in a dream, and the plot just, I can't even begin to explain it. It was just a lot, but good. It was good. It was just a lot. I will say that it has a lot of smut, so it's not a smut book, but it's just, there's a lot of it in there. So if that makes you uncomfortable, you're probably not going to like it. But if you're into smut, hey. The only thing about this book that I really didn't like was there was this thing that was mentioned about the main character's past that didn't really have anything to do with the plot, and this is my nitpick, was a lot of fantasy. It was just there for shock value, and it was talking about an assault that happened, and just the way that it was described was like really weird because it was portrayed as like a cultural thing. It was like a rite of passage. And that was just, I didn't like that. And I understand why it was here, it just made me uncomfortable. So I will just say that if you are sensitive to that type of thing, I did find it kind of disturbing, so just be on the lookout for that. But other than that, this book was really, really good, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Aragon by Christopher Paolini. I don't have it with me because I checked it out from the library. This was a reread because I read it in middle school and never finished the series, and it's one of my boyfriend's favorite series. He just really likes it, and so I decided to reread it so that we could talk about it together. And it just, I don't know if it really lived up to my expectations. Christopher Paolini was super young when he wrote this book, and so if I'm considering that, which I am, it's amazing. He did a much better job than I could ever do. So that's, I mean, he's a good writer, and it's a good story, and it's entertaining. But when I was in middle school, I remember I just loved it and couldn't find a single fault with it. And so rereading it was just kind of funny because there's a scene where Aragon takes like raw meat and he melts some snow, and then he puts the raw meat in the snow, and he's like, it's a stew. And I'm like, that's not how you make a stew. And I can't get over that scene, and I think about it every so often because it just makes me laugh so much. And there's also the fact that it is just Star Wars: A New Hope set in Middle Earth. Still good, and I'm gonna continue reading this series later on, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'm so sweaty, it's hot in my car, but I can't turn my air on because I'm almost out of gas. The final book that I read in February was Paladin of Souls by Lois McMaster Bujold. I saw this book on the internet a lot when I was searching for high fantasy with female main characters, because that's just kind of what I was in the mood for at the time. And so I found it at a used bookstore for like 50 cents, so I was like, sweet. I really, really liked it a lot. The world building was really cool, and the main character was cool. There were parts that made me laugh. There were also some parts that I was like, that's weird. I don't know how to describe it. There's a scene, it's in every fantasy book. Why? There's a sexual assault scene, but it happens to a male main character. Because it happens to a guy, it's portrayed like it's not even a big deal, and it's not even really mentioned. It's just kind of waved over, and that really bothers me because that's not okay. But other than that, and that really only happened on like a page, and I'm not sure why it was there. If you just cut that out, this book would be really, really, really good. And I liked the writing style. If you're into a really high fantasy, this is a good one to pick up. It's actually a sequel to The Curse of the Chalion, which I've never read, but I believe that they follow different main characters, and you don't actually have to read them in order. It's just, if you're interested in this world, there's another one that comes before it that follows a different main character, so you can kind of see more of it. But it was pretty awesome. It's about this middle-aged woman who struggles with mental illness who kills demons. So that's pretty cool. And I gave it 4.5 stars. Okay, so that's all the books that I read in February, and oh, that guy's looking at me. What's that guy? That was awkward. So if you're keeping track of my reading goal for this year, which is to read 73 books so that I can read more books than PewDiePie read last year, you'll know that I have to read 6 books a month to get there. Actually, one month will have to be more than 6 books. And in February, I only read 5. So I'm a little behind, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. All right, so there's a girl who just parked beside me. She's just watching me and laughing. So at this point, I'm just going to keep going. The first book that I read in March was The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. I really, really, really liked her writing style in this book. This is actually a prequel to Practical Magic, which I've never read, but I have seen the movie. And I was a huge fan of it. It was really good. So I ended up giving it 5 stars. She's still just laughing at me. She's got her dog in her car, and she's just like openly staring at me and laughing. Lady, maybe I'm FaceTiming, you don't know. I can do what I want in my car. The second book that I read in March was The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. I loved this book with all my heart, and it was so good. I made a review of it already, so I'm not going to spend much time talking about it, but if you'd like to see my review, I will leave a link to that in the description box. But I gave it 5 stars. And finally, the last book that I read in March, I don't have with me because I checked it out from the library, and that was The Museum of Extraordinary Things by Alice Hoffman. And I checked it out because I liked The Rules of Magic so much, and I was hoping it would be similar, but I don't know. This one was weird, and I might do a full review of it, I guess, because I didn't really like it much, and people like reviews over books that I don't like for some reason. People just like to be bitter. Which, same, it's fair. The actual story was really interesting and atmospheric. She's just good at writing in a pretty way. But with this book, she had two main characters, so she had 2 points of view. She wrote from actually 3 points of view. She wrote in third person limited part of the time, following each of the characters. And then she would randomly switch to first person, and it was out of order chronologically, and it was just really confusing and hard to keep up with. And then also just a lot of stuff happened in the book that I didn't feel needed to be there. It's very trigger heavy, there's self-harm, there's assault, there's a lot of stuff, so, be careful if you decide to read it. But the actual story was really good. So I'm probably going to read other things that Alice Hoffman has written, because I did enjoy The Rules of Magic so much. And this one, I can tell that something good is there, and it's not a bad read. It's just... I just had really high expectations for it because The Rules of Magic was so good, and I was just kind of let down a little bit. But the story was really cool and magical. She writes magical realism, so if you're a fan of that, definitely check her out. But yeah, just something about it fell flat for me, so I ended up giving it 2.75 stars. And that's all the books that I read in March, which is 3 books, and I needed 6. So I am 4 books behind, but not to worry, everything's fine. Don't at me. We'll say that right now. I'm reading Circe by Madeline Miller, and I really like it. I'm almost done with it. It was actually due back at the library yesterday because it's a bestseller. It's okay. I'm going to finish it today and turn it in today, but I am really enjoying it. So that'll be the first book that I finish in April. Yeah, I'm behind. I'm busy with school and research and work. Just leave me alone, okay? Life is hard, but I'm doing my best. That girl is pulling out right now to leave. What? Did she just really park there just to watch me for a second? I'm confused. My booktuber shout out for this week is going to be Jessie from Bow Ties and Books, since I already mentioned them. And like I said, they're the glue that holds the booktube community together. Their videos are amazing. They do skits, they do reviews, they do discussions. They are the creator of Blackathon. They are everything. And I love them. They're so sweet. Please check them out. They have way more subscribers than me, so I'm sure that if you're subscribed to me, you're already subscribed to them. But just on the off chance you aren't, you should really go and watch their videos, because it's good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought of them in the comments. I will see you all again very soon with a new video, but until then, happy reading.